Welcome to Carol and Gary's See America Tour.
Hello again, everyone. The year is 1607. Along with 102 other passengers and 39 crew members spread among 3 ships, the Susan Constant, Godspeed, and the Discovery, Carol, Jasper, and I are now en route to our next destination. We have been traveling for 144 days. A year ago, King James I of England granted us a charter to establish a colony in Virginia. We are in search of economic opportunities, deposits of gold, iron ore, timber, and other natural resources to send back to England. On May 13, 1607, we arrived at our destination. This location would come to be known as Jamestown after King James I. We had instructions to locate upriver 100 miles on a river with a northwest orientation so that we could search for a northwest passage to the Orient. Jamestown Island met these criteria and had a deep water port so we could dock our ships to the trees. Okay, so back to reality. First of all, no women were aboard the original 3 English ships, only men and boys. Women would not arrive until the second supply ship in the fall of 1608, and then only 1 woman traveling with her husband and maid would be aboard that ship. As you might have figured out, Carol and I did visit historic Jamestown Island, Virginia, on May 7th to learn about the original English settlement in America. On June 22, 1607, 39 days after arriving, the Susan Constant and Godspeed, carrying a load of supposedly precious metals, began their return trip to London, leaving behind the 104 colonists and the ship Discovery to be used for exploring the area. Shortly after the 2 ships left for England, James Smith, a captain who had made the original voyage to Jamestown, began using the remaining ship Discovery to explore Chesapeake Bay and its adjoining rivers to look for a supply of food for the colonists. While leading one of the food-gathering expeditions in December 1607, his men were attacked by Indians and Smith was captured. After an Indian known as Pocahontas negotiated his release, Smith returned to Jamestown just in time for the arrival of the first resupply ship from England in January 1608. Along with supplies, the supply ship brought 70 more colonists. The original colonists had a rough first year, suffering through food shortages, drought, illness, and disease. They had trouble establishing relations with local Powhatan Indians and lacked skilled labor to perform many of the tasks needed to survive. When the first resupply ship arrived in January 1608, only 38 of the original 104 colonists were still alive. Luckily, that first resupply ship contained 70 additional colonists. A second, third, and fourth resupply ships with additional colonists, supplies, and livestock would arrive by 1910, but the existing and newly arrived settlers were ill-prepared to survive the winters, resulting in the starving times of 1609 to 1610, when most of the inhabitants perished. In 1994, Preservation Virginia agreed to fund a 10-year archaeological project called Jamestown Rediscovery in order to archaeologically explore the land. In 1996, part of the original 1607 fort was found. Portions of that structure have been recreated on the original location. In 2007, to mark the 400th anniversary of the Jamestown settlement, Queen Elizabeth II revisited the site. She had previously been there in 1957. In 2010, archaeologists discovered the site of the second church constructed at Jamestown. Today, archaeologists are continuing to examine the original Jamestown site. Trowels are being used to carefully scrape away the soil, and then everything is dumped into buckets for cleaning and further investigation. A museum has been built on site to display the over 3 million artifacts that have been found. Our trip to Jamestown was very educational and is highly recommended if you happen to be in the area. On Saturday, May 8th, Carol and I drove to nearby Yorktown, Virginia, to visit the Yorktown battlefield. By the summer of 1781, the United States had been at war with England for over 6 years. The United States was trying to gain its independence from England. In the summer of 1780, the Americans had received a boost to their cause when 5,500 French troops arrived to assist the United States. I'm not going to go into the entire battle because it would be very boring, But basically, 8,300 British troops, commanded by General Charles Cornwallis, were occupying Yorktown, Virginia, on the shores of the York River, which flows into Chesapeake Bay, so you know this was a strategic location. 17,600 American and French troops under the command of General George Washington were gathering in Williamsburg, Virginia, 15 miles away. Cornwallis had chosen Yorktown because of its deep water harbor on the York River. His army spent the latter part of the summer fortifying Yorktown and Gloucester Point across the York River. Cornwallis sinks part of his fleet to form a barrier against a seaborne assault. Cornwallis had his men construct a main line of defense around Yorktown that consisted of batteries with artillery and connecting trenches. The Americans and French marched from Williamsburg to Yorktown on September 28, 1781, and began digging a trench 800 yards from the British defense lines to begin a siege. By October 9, 1781, the Allies' trench was finished and their artillery had been moved up. Firing at the British continuously, the Allies had virtually knocked out the British guns by October 11th. During the night of October 11th, the Allies began a second trench 400 yards from the British. The next day was spent bringing up artillery and strengthening the new line. With the completion of the second parallel, American and French troops stormed the outer defenses on October 14, 1781. Following a failed attempt at evacuation, Cornwallis surrendered on October 19, 1781. On October 19, 1781, in a spectacle incredible to all those who witnessed it, most of Cornwallis's army marched out of Yorktown between two lines of Allied soldiers, American on one side and French on the other, that stretched for more than a mile. The British marched to a field where they laid down their arms and then returned to Yorktown. The Yorktown battlefield was also very interesting. We were given a driving map of the battlefield area, and then allowed to follow a path to 12 important points in the battle. Along the way we could see where trenches were dug. We could also see where British troops had installed sharpened sticks to impede the Allied advance. We drove to the field where the initial surrender took place, and then the famous Morehouse where senior members of both sides met to discuss the terms of the surrender. On Tuesday, May 11th, Carol and I visited the Jamestown settlement, a place not historically associated with the landing of the English colonists on Jamestown Island on May 13, 1607. In fact, this business is not even located on Jamestown Island, but it is a living history museum near Jamestown that tries to convey what it would have been like living on Jamestown Island after the colonists had arrived and for several years after that. The first thing that we saw were replicas of the original English ships that traveled from England to Virginia from 1606 to 1607. At 66 feet in length and 14 feet wide, the Discovery was the smallest ship in the fleet. It carried 12 passengers with a crew of 9. This was the ship that Captain James Smith used to explore the area after the Susan Constant and Godspeed returned to England for supplies. The second ship that we visited was the 88-foot-long Godspeed. It was 17 feet wide and carried 39 passengers with a crew of 13. The third and largest ship, the Susan Constant, was away having work done, so we couldn't tour it, but it was 116 feet long and 24 feet 10 inches wide. The Susan Constant would carry 54 passengers with a crew of 17. Before I show you this next video clip, I'm going to show you a picture of an app on my phone called Before You Fly. It pinpoints exactly where I am and warns me about flying in no-fly zones. Notice the pink area in the middle of my screen. This is the National Park Service that operates the original Jamestown settlement. I know that all national parks are off limits for flying drones. So here I am just west of the national park, ready to fly over the two recreated colonial ships. My latitude was 37.22918. My longitude was negative 76.79048. My drone says that I'm clear to take off, but as soon as I take off, someone apparently called security. Some kid showed up in a security uniform and told me that I was flying in restricted airspace. I didn't try to argue with him. I just landed, packed up the drone, and left, but I did capture this quick video of the two colonial ships before landing. Next, we watched a musketeer load and then fire his musket.
Present for peace. Give fire.
After the musketeer, we saw a man demonstrating how a log was burned out to create a canoe. The final demonstration that we watched was a person showing how the Indians made tools and weapons. And with that, we will be leaving Williamsburg and Virginia in the morning. Virginia is the 38th state that Carol and I have visited together. I didn't show our drive from Virginia Beach to Williamsburg on Interstate 64 earlier, but we had to drive through another tunnel, and this time in our 8-foot wide motorhome, so I thought I'd close out this video with the drive through the tunnel. Although it is not one of the 50 states, we will be driving to Washington, D.C. tomorrow. If you like this video but have not yet subscribed, please do so to be notified of future videos, and as always, feel free to share with your friends. Thanks for watching!